Welcome all my joyful creators and yarn joy adventurists. I am so excited for this project today. And today we are going to make a crochet topper to this really cute Mickey Mouse dish towel. I found this two set. It has two kitchen towels to it at a store called Tuesday Mornings for $5.99, and so they're really cute. So you'll need a towel, a dish towel. You'll need to have some yarn that will match your towel that you want to put with it, and then you will need to have, this is just my cute little case that I keep all of my sewing needles in. And so I have one already out, so I'm going to set that to the side. So you'll need a sewing needle. You'll need some correlating thread that will match your dish towel and kind of hide into it. So I've chosen red to go with it. And you will need a darning needle. I go back and forth between the solid metals and then the metal with the little wide plastic, loop on it. For these dish towels, I highly recommend using the metal yarn or darning needle. And so we have that. You'll need a pair of scissors, of course. And then you need a pair of big scissors for cutting your towel, because we're going to cut them in half. So these two towels would actually give me 4 towels. So that's not bad when you divide 4 into $6. You get, your dishcloths at a really cheaper price. So it works out nice. And then this is optional. You may or may not need to use straight pins, but it's entirely up to you and your preference. And I will let you know where those would come into play. This is one of 3 of my little, tomato thingies or whatever that hold straight pins for me. And this particular one, my middle son, Jonathan, who is my Marine, he did this for me when, gosh, he was probably in middle school. So one day I was working at the sewing machine and he just did this. And so it's cute. I've kind of left it that way. So I really only take the the straight pins from the top when I need them, so I can put them right back in. But yeah, it will always and forever have this cute little smiley face to remind me of just that time with my son. Love memories, love memories. And then, of course, you need a little bit of lotion to moisturize your hands, because you want to keep your hands, which is your best tool in crocheting, moisturized and hydrated, so that they stay elastic, or it has elasticity in it. And not to mention, it just keeps them working better and more flexible and looking nice. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video for a minute and get the craft table cleared off. And sorry for that little shake as I hit the camera talking with my hands. And get us ready. So the first thing you're going to need to have in front of you is your towel and your big pair of sharp scissors. And mine are just a pair of Fiskar Easy Action scissors. And I actually purchased these from Hobby Lobby, is where I got these scissors from. All right, so we'll come back with our towel and our big scissors, and we'll get ready to get started on our towel. Welcome back. I am just finishing up getting this lotion rubbed into my hands really well. Even though we're not going to start off crocheting, I will just be ready for when we do. Okay, so you've got your towel. And what you want to do is you want to fold it in half so that both sides are even. And oddly, it appears that one side of my towel is actually longer than the other. Look at that. How funny. Okay, so I'm going to try and get this matched up as evenly as possible on the edge here. Okay, and when I have that done, I'm going to take my scissors, take the safety off. Whoops. There we go. And then I am simply, let me slide this up some so you can see. I'm then going to simply just cut my towel in half. So I now have two pieces. So I can take this piece here and put it to the side because that's a whole nother towel. And then I have this piece right here. Okay. Now, I've noticed something about this particular towel, and I'm looking, I have another towel and I can show you something different. Let me hold with me just patiently for just a minute so I can show you something. I have another towel that I am going to show you. So see how this towel is? You've got your Snoopies running this way, okay? And on the other side, it's the same way. They're going in the same direction, okay? So normally, that means when you're sewing across the top to crochet, your pattern from both sides is going the right way, okay? And if it's on the back side of the towel, the other half, as you can see, these are same, so I can just demonstrate with this side. Again, you can work at the top and do your crochet in your topper, and your pattern is going down. I've come to notice on this one that when I cut the towel in half, let me grab this other half back, that as I go to work with this half, my pattern will be going in the right direction. But unfortunately, the way this towel was designed, it had it as one complete continual pattern, and they're going in the same direction. They're not mirroring each other as most dish towels do. Unless they're solid, of course, then it doesn't matter. So what does this do for us? Because it kind of creates a dilemma, because if we sew this top down and make our topper, all of our Mickeys will be upside down. So I'm kind of glad this happened, because then I can work through this dilemma with you and resolve it. So we're just going to have to add a little bit of an extra step to this towel, because I don't want my Mickeys hanging upside down. I want them to hang this way. So I'm going to sew down this end just like I normally would, but instead of working my topper on this side, I'm going to work my topper up here. So really we're not adding an extra step, we're just turning the towel and working from the bottom of the towel instead of the top of the towel for our topper. So now that we have our towel cut, we can put these scissors away. We don't need those anymore. And now this is where our straight pins, if you feel you want to use them, will come into play. And so what you want to do is you want to fold your towel over. Now I usually give it a good, about a 1/2 inch turnover, and you want it to go across evenly. So that's why I do like to use straight pins, especially if I'm sewing this on my sewing machine. So I'm just going to grab a straight pin and stick it in, and I'm going to do this all the way across. And just fold this piece over so that it is laying about the same all the way across. And I do kind of take my time with this and play with it because I do want to make sure that I am evenly, because it's very easy to make it wider. And then it will show. So I just kind of take my time making sure that I fold it evenly. And we're almost done. And then one more right here on the end, and we will be good. Okay, let me turn this around. And so here is my towel pinned. So now I am ready for sewing. Let me show you what it looks like on the other side. And I always do this before I start sewing, because depending on what the pattern is on your towel, you may want to, end up making this little fold, shorter or wider, depending on that pattern. But looking at that, that goes across quite nicely. I'm very pleased with that. And so the last thing I'm going to do, since this particular towel is a little different, is I'm now going to turn it and look at it from this view. And if this is the bottom of my towel, this is what will actually be hanging. I'm still very pleased with that. I think that's still a very nice cut edge. That little pin right there made it look funny. But if I smooth that out, that will hang very nicely. So I will be happy and satisfied with that. So now I need to grab my thread. And I'm one who I usually am fairly generous when it comes to sewing with yarn or thread, because I love keeping my thread or my yarn as one piece versus having to run out and add more, because I think that sometimes it just weakens the wear and tear. So I always like to measure my thread out the length of where I need to sew, and then I do it double, because I always want to make sure that I have enough. But because I'd always rather be safe than sorry, I always do it 3 times. So this is the length I need. But now I want to double this thread so it doubles the security of it. So I'm just going to fold that in half and then just pull until I have doubled the length of that thread. And then I'm good. You can do this however you want, but for me, that's what I do, because again, I like to keep my thread and my yarn that I'm sewing with all in one piece. All right, and just attaching that back. And then I'm going to thread one end of this onto my sewing needle. I was trying to do it where you can see it, not that you need to be shown how to thread a needle, but you never know. I may have a youngster that's new. And it could be helpful. So once I have it on, I'm just going to pull it all the way to the end, and then I want to make sure that the ends are even and they're close. So I'm going to pull them so that they are. And then when it is, I'm going to just simply knot. And I like to do a double knot. And then they didn't come out quite on top of each other. So I'm going to do it again, and I'm going to control that knot. And there we go. And then I'm just going to take and cut that excess off. And then I'm going to come up under, see how it's got like a fold right here? I'm going to try and bring my camera down a little bit so you can see a little bit closer. Hope I don't make anyone dizzy. Not my intention. All right, there we go. All right, now see how we have this fold from the fold where we folded it over? I'm going to bring my needle up through this part so my knot will be hidden. So go ahead and pull that all the way through. There we go. So it looks like that. There's your knot. All right. Once you have that, your knot is now hidden. I'm going to make sure these ends are evenly together, and then I'm going to come down through both of them, and I'm going to go ahead and tack that side down. And as with anything, you do have to just take your time and pull slowly, because knotted thread is a lot harder to untangle and unknot than yarn is. And then after that, I am simply going to start just sewing, working my way up, down, however you want to look at it, this edge, and creating a seam so that my towel has a nice edge. Now, obviously on this white, you can see this red thread, but I'm not worried about that because that's going to be on the side that's not even being seen. All right, now on this side here, I can see it a little bit, but for the most part, I'm not worried about that, because when I come across through here, now you can use a solid white even over color if you want. I mean, that's what the manufacturers do. But I just use the color thread. And again, normally I would do this on my sewing machine, but there are times that I've not been able to do my sewing machine because I may be away from home. And so I'll just do it this way. And it just takes a little bit longer than using a sewing machine, but you don't have to have a sewing machine to make this project successful. So I'm just going to do just a couple more stitches here with you. And then we'll pause the video and finish sewing across and come back and continue. So once I have that tacked down a little bit, I can go ahead and remove that safety pin. And I'm just going to put it back in my little tomato head there. And then I'm just going to continue working towards my next straight pin. And I'm just trying to make these as straight as possible. I just use the previous stitch as a guide, and that way I'm keeping it fairly straight going across. I don't make them very wide or very long. I do make them kind of short stitches because I want it to stick, you know. I don't want it to come unraveled after a couple washes. You know, I want it to be able to last. So I found the shorter I make these stitches, which is why a sewing machine is good, but if you're doing it by hand like we are, the shorter stitches, yes, it takes a lot longer, but it also allows your towel to last longer. Okay, so we've done a couple stitches there. And that's what it's looking like. So go ahead and pause the video and finish working all the way across. When I get to the end, I just do it a couple times in the last stitch just to make sure that my ending stitch, you know, is really good. And then I will try to pull it through because I'll have this little tiny opening, and I will pull it through the very middle here and come out that one end. I will knot my yarn, and then before I cut the rest of it off, I will go back in here, pull it up through, and then just kind of slide it down through these that I did several times in the sideways, and then cut it. That way my knot is on the inside as well. All right, and I'll meet you back when you get finished. I'm at the end, so I've come back to work this part with you so you can see what I was talking about. So I've made my last little stitch here. So I'm going to try and come in and just mimic that stitch a couple times. Now if I was doing this on the sewing machine, you know, it would end it off for me by going back and forth. So I'm just going to manually do that a couple times just to strengthen this end stitch. And of course I'm going through the thickness of both of those thick borders of the towel, so I have to be careful I don't poke my finger because that would hurt. And so I'm just gonna, like I said, reinforce this very last stitch, and I just do it just a couple times because that's all it needs, because remember you already have 2 strands each time you do it, so every time you do it you double it. So really that's probably enough, but I'm just going to do one more. And this time when I come through, I'm going to slide in the middle of it, in between the two, and come out that way. Okay, so now I'm going to knot my yarn, and I'm going to try and control that knot by holding on to it and forcing it to go to the end there, just like that. And then I'm going to do it again. And once again, I'm going to hold it and force that knot to the very end. All right, just like that. Now I want that knot on the inside, so I'm going to pick another little space just up from it, but not too much, because you know this red yarn is showing on this white. And I'm just wiggling it, trying to come back up as close into that same hole as possible. Almost there. That's close enough. So see how that knot now is on the inside? And then I'm going to come, and you could trim it there if you want. Again, I'm all about durability. So I'm sliding my thread just underneath those threads. A couple times. And if you want, even, you can use that. And you just have to be careful and make a knot there. And I'm just going to do it one more time. And then after that knot, I will trim my thread. And my towel is finished. And so that's what it's going to look like. And I love that. That will be the bottom of my towel. So this is how much yarn, or excuse me, I'm so used to saying yarn, how much thread I had left. So if I show you the needle, there we go, now you can see it. So I'm not going to waste that, because remember this thread is folded in half. So don't waste it. There might be a project down the road that I need it, and I only need it to be, you know, a single strand instead of a double strand, or I just need to sew on a button, even double-stranded, and I'll have a nice perfect little piece to start off with. So I'm not gonna waste it. So nothing is wasted. Now it's time to get started on our towel. And so we've got our bottom done, which would have normally been where we excuse me, did the towel topper. But again, because our pattern would have been upside down, we're going to come to the bottom of the towel to do our towel topper. And I'm going to remove that little sewing needle. We don't need it anymore. So now I've got my yarn, and I just need to find that center. So I'm just digging in the guts, and I'm going to pull it out and just try to find my beginning piece. And there it is. And I do the same thing with my yarn that I do with the thread. I'm going to try to bring you back up and not make you dizzy. And that is, I like to do 3 lengths of my yarn. And I do it kind of generously. And then I'm going to cut that. None of this will be wasted, so don't worry about that. Once you have your yarn cut, we're going to put a knot at the very end. And again, I like to just double that knot, and then I just control it by making that knot appear in the middle of this knot, and it makes it nice and big, just like that. And then I'm going to trim that off. And now we need our darning needle. And we're just going to thread that in. And once we have that on, we're ready to go. So I always like to work this across the back. So meaning the wrong side is facing me. And we're going to come, you've got this little section right here. Now let me bring the camera back down a little bit closer. There we go. So you have this little section right here that's extra thick because of that border. You're going to come right to the bottom of it and you're going to push your darning needle through. Now it is thick, so it takes a little bit of wiggling and maneuvering. But once you get that through, then just pull it through. Okay. And then on the right side, we're going to come back through on the top there. And all I'm doing is just pulling that through. And so it looks like this on this side. Okay. And now we're set and ready to go. I just kind of periodically space them out. I mean, there's no set. Now you can, if you want, you can get a ruler and then you can take a little Sharpie and dot it if you want. That's entirely up to you. You know, you can do that, and you can get one of those little sharp beading tools and poke the holes through it. I just simply do it this way. Like that. Then I want to come down through the top towards the bottom, towards me, and pull that yarn through. And basically what I'm doing is I'm now creating what would be like my foundation chain. And then I'm just going to skip over a little bit, and I'm going to do another one. I don't count these going across the dish towels. It doesn't really matter if it is odd or even in the grand scheme of things. With this project, it's very, very flexible. And as you can see, it's creating these little loops, and that's what we'll work from. Okay. And again, just slide down through that. And again, this is why I use the metal darning needle, yarn needle, whatever you want to call it, because it seems to poke through the material a little bit better. The only time I struggle is on the very ends, because I'm going almost in a way through 4 layers of material. But other than that, it pokes through very nicely. And I'll do one more here with you, and then we'll pause the video and I'll let you finish this up going across. Okay, so you're going to continue doing that all the way down. When you get to the end and you've put your last one in, I just kind of make sure that it's as close to the edge, but I'm not right on the edge, because I don't want it weakening the material here. So I just kind of do it right in the middle of this little border piece here, and that border piece is between my thumbnails. So I just try to do it right in the center. Do not fasten off your yarn. I will come back and join you, and I'll show you what to do next, because we're going to use any leftover yarn. So go ahead and pause the video and continue working across, and I'll meet you at the very end. When you get all the way to the end and you have made that last stitch in the center of the border there, and you've pulled your yarn through, we have finished. So we're going to go ahead and pull our yarn off the darning needle, and we are finished with this. Let me slide this over. So we have this much yarn left, and that's going to be our working yarn. So we're going to join it to our skein with a magic knot. I've demonstrated this several times, but I'm going to go ahead and do it real quickly on here. You just take the yarn from the skein and we're just knotting it down. I like to do it twice. Many say once is sufficient, but I always just do it twice. And then the working yarn to the skein yarn, and again, I'm just going to knot it twice. And this is what we have. And then I'm just going to pull those two knots together. And when I have that nicely pulled nice and tight, I'm just going to take the scissors and cut off these end tails. And all of the hard work is done, and we are now ready to crochet. And I just realized that in the beginning, when I showed you all the items, I failed to have the hook in there. So we do need a hook. I always use a J hook, a 6.0 millimeter hook on my dish towels. So now we're going to turn our dish towel. Well, actually, before we do that, we're going to do just like we would. We're going to go up under this first little loop here, and we're going to yarn over and pull a loop through, and we're going to chain 2. And now we're going to turn our towel over. And we are going to crochet across. Even though I did a chain 2 in this one here, I'm going to go ahead and crochet a double crochet right into that first one as well. So this is what I have. Basically 2 double crochets into this first one. And then I'm going to crochet into each of these loops, double crochet that is, into each of these loops across. And I'm just simply sliding up under that loop and using it just like I would a foundation chain. And I'm at the part here where my knot, it's what's preventing me from getting in here because it's created a tension. See that knot right there from my magic knot? So let's try this again. And you want that. That's actually a good thing for us because, well, now I ended up managing to make that. But either way, I'm still going to be able to hide it. You want it to kind of disappear. And I was able to still do that. See how that knot just disappears? And you can't even feel it. I love it when that happens. And so I'm just going to continue working double crochets all the way across this towel. Now you don't have to do double crochets. You can do half double crochets. You can even do single crochets. I like the double crochets because I like the lacy look that it gives it. For example, see how those stitches are kind of nice and open? My dog was eating and started choking, so I had to stop a minute and make sure that she was okay, and she is. And we're going to just keep working across all of these loops making double crochets. And as you can tell with this variegated yarn, it's already switched colors a couple times, and I love it. And I know because I hold my hook like a knife, sometimes it's hard to see me make my stitches, but I do try to keep my hands out the way. So you can see those stitches worked. Okay, we're almost to the end of our first row. So we'll finish this off. And then before I show you how to turn and go to the next row, which is just like you normally would, so it will feel comfortable and it'll be easy, we'll stop and take a look at our first row on our towel. And we only have a couple more stitches here. Then I like to try and pull that one up. And go underneath it. And work one final double crochet. So now that doesn't look like it's oddly placed. And that's what we have. Our very first row. So now we're going to chain 2, 1, 2, turn our work, and then we're going to proceed just like we normally would. That actually have to chain 3. I apologize. But chain 3 will count as our first double crochet and our turning chain in that very last stitch that we made under this little side piece. So we'll then go to the very next double crochet to work our double crochet. And then we're just going to continue working across, working our double crochets. Now, and we're going to work a double crochet into each stitch. I like to do 3 solid rows of double crochets in each stitch on my dish towels. You can do however many rows you want. I like to build a pretty strong, when I say strong, solid base, so to speak, before I start kind of decreasing it down to the handle. And that way it's got a pretty crocheted, top to it. But again, you can do this however many times you want. I like to do 3. So for this tutorial, we're going to do 3. So I want you to go ahead and pause the video and continue down the rest of this second row. When you get to the end, chain 3, turn your work, and work 1 more row. When you get to the end of that row, I will meet up with you when we finish our third row. I went ahead and jumped back on here really quickly because I wanted to show you something. You know how we did the extra double crochet at the end here by slipping underneath that little side stitch here? This is why I had you do 2 double crochets into the first one, so that we would have that even amount on both sides. So I'm going to crochet into this, or double crochet into that last official stitch, but then we'll go and do a double crochet in the top of this chain as well, and then chain 3 to go into the third row. So finish your third row and I will meet up with you where we originally agreed to meet up at. So when you get to the end of the row here, we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, turn our work, again that chain 3 will count as our first double crochet in our turning chain. Okay, so now when we go to work our next double crochet, we're going to, so this goes to the chain 3, we're going to skip this next one and we're going to come into the next one and work our double crochet. We're going to skip the next one and we're going to work a double crochet into the next one. We're going to skip the next one and work our double crochet into the next one. We're going to skip this next one and work a double crochet into the next one. And we're going to skip the next one and work a double crochet into the next one. And we're just going to keep doing this all the way down the row, skipping one and working a double crochet. As you can tell, it's creating a bigger hole. And when we get to the end of the row, we will take a look at our dish towel from the front and you'll get to see how it's starting to give it more of that open lacy look, which just makes it look really nice, I think. Okay, now again, you can do single and half double crochets, and then instead of skipping stitches, you can actually do decrease stitches until you get down to what you need for the part that wraps around and secures your dish towel to allow it to hang. You don't have to skip stitches. All right, so I'm down to the last one. I'm going to skip this one and I'm going to come into the top of this chain. But now if, since we don't count when we put our, basically what we did for our foundation row in, we don't count to see if it's odd or even. If something happened and let's say, you had one more stitch, oops, only picked up one loop of that chain. So let me grab both loops. But let's say after you did that, you had one chain left because you had an odd amount. That's fine. Just do a double crochet in it. Again, it's not going to make any difference. Okay, so now we finished that row. Let's chain 3. 1, 2, 3, turn our work, and this is what it's looking like. And you can already start to feel from that last row, you can start to feel it gathering and closing in as if we had done decreased stitches. So it's creating the shape. Okay, so again, chain 3 counts as that first stitch. So we're going to skip this one and we're going to go into the next one and work our double crochet. Skip, go into the next one, skip, and go into the next one, skip, and go into the next one, and again we're working double crochets on all of this. Skip and go into the next one, skip and go into the next one, and skip and go into the next one, and skip and go into the next one. And here's a good example. I don't know why it happened that way, but it did. So see, I would normally have skipped that if I was following the pattern, but since it's the only one I have left, then I'm just going to work in the top of it and just do another double crochet. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn my work. Okay, and then I'm just going to repeat that. Again, that chain 3 will go for this first one. So I'm going to skip that one, and I'm going to work a double crochet into this one. And I'm going to skip and work a double crochet. And so we're going to keep doing this until we get down to where we have about 4 stitches left. Again, because we don't necessarily do a count at the beginning, because it really doesn't matter. And so see here again, I would normally skip if I was doing the pattern, but I'm just going to go into the top of that one, so I end it on the end stitch. Chain 3. You might, sometimes my dishcloths, instead of having 4 chains left, might have 5 chains left. Sometimes I've done it with 6 chains to have a wide, strap. All right, so let's count and see what we've got. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 left. So actually, I'm just going to go with those 6 for my strap, because if I were to skip one and then do it, it would leave me with only 3, and that would cause for a very thin strap, and I don't like the straps to be thin. So we're going to go ahead and start working on our strap. So that chain 3 counts as our first. We're going to go into the next double crochet and work a double crochet, and we're going to work a double crochet in each of these remaining stitches that we have. So as I just counted out, I had 6. So my strap is going to be 6 double crochet stitches wide. And I'm happy with that. And that stitch is very tight, so I'm going to wiggle it in. There we go. And then we're going to chain 3 and turn our work. And of course, now we're starting on the strap. And that last row we did would be counted as row 1 of the strap. And so now that chain 3 counts as our first double crochet. We'll go into the very next stitch and work a double crochet, and we're going to work a double crochet all the way across. And this will complete the second row of our strap. I like to work my straps so that I have 20 rows. So when we finish this as our second row, we'll need to repeat this 18 more times. And then chain 3 and get ready to start the next row. So go ahead, and you can already see the strap forming. And this is what we have so far. You can already see where it's gathering nicely. I'm going to pull this out just a little bit so I don't lose my stitches. And I'm just going to show you, it's already automatically causing it, see, it's already causing it to want to fold back in so that we're getting this nice shape to it. So go ahead and pause the video and continue working your strap, working double crochets in each stitch across until you've completed a total of 20 rows for your strap. And when you're done, come back and join me and I'll show you what to do next. We are at the end of our 20th row for our strap. So we're going to go ahead and fasten off. So I'm going to chain one and give a little bit of a tail. But this is our dishcloth. Let me bring this up a little bit here. Dishcloth. Our dish towel, excuse me. And we have our strap, and it comes like that. So then it's able to hang. So now we just need to weave in this little tail right here. So I'm just going to grab my darning needle. And I'm going to come through that last stitch that I made, like that. And then I'm just going to weave this kind of down through the stitches till I come to this white part. Like that. And then I'm going to kind of slide in between those. And then skip over this one here that I came out from under. And kind of slide back up. And then skip over that one I just came out of. And kind of slide back down through these. And then I'll go up one more time. And that should be good enough, nice and secure there. All right. And trim off what's left. And now we're ready to put on a button. Before we go there, if you decide to do like single crochet or half double crochets for your dishcloth, just remember that when you get to the row where you're going to wrap around your button, you would need to skip a stitch with that so that you've got a hole to go around your button. But if you're doing double crochet, it doesn't matter because it already creates one naturally in each stitch. So now you need to find a button, and I always like to get a button that, you know, matches or either goes with the theme of my dish towel. And so, you know, a nice red button would show up well on this black. I could even do a black if I wanted it to blend in. I could do a white. You know, there's gray in this yarn, so I could do, you know, a gray button, whatever, you know, something that matches. I just so happen to have an actual Mickey Mouse button. So that's what I am going to put on my dish towel. So I like to fold my dish towel strap over and then kind of place my button about where I would want it to hang. You can do it where it's down low. You can even do it where it's right at the very last row. I always like to do mine up a couple rows so that I have a little bit down below the button. So about the third row. So that means I'm going to come to my strap and I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. So that is about my third row. And if I fold it over and I feel through and look through, that's about where I want it. So now I need to sew it on. And I got some black thread to match the yarn. I'm only sewing on a button, so I just need just a little bit of thread. Okay. And again, this is going to, be washed several times. So I'm going to double up my thread. And then I'm just going to create my knot. Let's just go ahead and double that knot. And then trim off the excess. Now my button obviously doesn't have holes in the front. It just has this little loop in the back there. So I'm going to come to this third section here, and I'm going to put my thread in this way because I want my knot on this side where it's hidden behind the button. But now, obviously, if I pull hard enough, my thread is going to come through the yarn. So I just want to pull it enough that it is right up against the yarn, and then I'm going to slide my needle back up through the yarn like so, and then I'm going to go in between the two threads under the knot and pull it like this, and that helps to secure my knot down. And now I'm ready to put on my button. So just slide it on, and then I'm just going to come over here and I'm just going to sew my button on as I normally would. Now I have the towel facing me. I'm at the bottom of my strap on the front side to sew my button on. So then I'm just going to come up through the yarn and through the button, and then back down through the yarn and sew that button on. I'm going to come back up through the yarn and through the button and just keep sewing it on. And I'm going to do it several times so I know that it's on there nice and good. If the person receiving this towel washes theirs as much as I do, that would be a lot. So I want to make sure it's nice and secure. I'm going to go ahead and secure this one more time, and then we'll go ahead and fasten off. So on the back side here, I'm just going to take this and kind of go under the yarn a little bit, pull it through, and just knot it off. And I'm just going to do that a couple times. And there we go. Okay. And 1, 2, 3. And then I'm just going to grab somewhere in the middle there and work my button through. And there we go. I have my Mickey Mouse dish towel. And that would be it. Now, I like to do something else to my dish towels. And so I'm going to show you what that is. You can either be done with your dish towel at this point, or you can do what I'm fixing to show you. So if you're ready, let's get started. So in order to do it, we're going to do just like we do at the very, very beginning. We got to have the bottom edge of our dish towel, and I'm going to grab my yarn, and I'm going to measure out 3 lengths of my yarn. Okay, and trim it. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and knot it, and knot it again. To make that knot nice and thick, pull it tight. Trim off the excess. Put it on my darning needle. Okay. And then I'm going to do the same thing. Again, you want to have the back side facing you that I did on the top. So I'm going to come in to the bottom of that border. And again, this is usually the hardest stitch or the hardest place to pull through, but it went through fairly well for me. And I'm going to pull that all the way through. And then I'm going to come back through the top. And hopefully it will go as easy as it did on the last one going in. And there we go. And so we're going to walk across the top of this doing exactly what we did on the top part of our dish towel. So I'm going to go ahead and get you to pause the video and do across the bottom here just like we did across the top. And when you get to the other end, we'll meet back up and I'll show you how to add a nice bottom border or crocheted border to the bottom of your dish towel and spiff it up a little bit. So when you get that finished, we're going to take our darning needle off, and just like we did the last time, we're going to grab the yarn from our skein and what's left of our working yarn and do a magic knot to join. And then trim off these excess edges. And grab our hook. And I'm going to go up through this first loop. And I'm going to yarn over and pull up a loop. And I'm going to do that 2 more times so I have a chain 3 total. And I'm going to turn my work. And just like I did on the top, I'm going to work a double crochet into each stitch. I'm going to do just like I did. I've got that chain 3 there, but just on this base here, I'm going to add 1 extra double crochet into this end stitch. And as you can see, I'm working my knot right in there. It's got some gray to it, so you can still see it. But when I go to work the next one, it's going to hide it. And there. It's kind of blending in nicely. You can still see it, but it just looks like part of the color. All right. And we're just going to make double crochets all the way across this row. And so I'm going to go ahead and let you work the double crochets all the way across this row since you did this on the top. We're going to chain 3. We're going to add a second row of double crochets in each stitch across. And when you get that finished, we'll come back and I'll show you how to do the final row. And then we will have added a nice little crocheted bottom to our dish towel, and our dish towel will be complete. So go ahead and finish this row, add a second row of double crochets in each stitch across, chaining 3 at the beginning, and I will meet back up with you. Now do remember that when you get down to the end of this row, work a extra double crochet through this little loop here. Okay? All right. We're at the end of our second row, and so we're going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Turn your work. Okay. And we're going to work a single crochet stitch into this very next stitch. And we're going to work a single crochet into the next stitch. Chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We're going to single crochet into the next stitch and single crochet into the next stitch. Chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, single crochet into the next stitch, and single crochet into the next stitch. And this is what we have forming at the bottom. This really cute frilly look. And so we're going to keep that up all the way across, single crocheting into the next stitch, chaining 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, working a single crochet into the next stitch and a single crochet into the next stitch. And we're going to do this all the way across, chaining 5 and then single crocheting into the next 2 stitches. And when you get to the end, you're going to go ahead and fasten off and weave in your ends, and then our dish towel will be complete. So go ahead and pause the video and finish up, and when we're done, we'll come back and take a look at our dish towel. Here is our completed dish towel. We've got our strap with our beautiful little Mickey button on there. And then here is our completed dish towel. I love the bottom on it. Again, you don't have to add that to the bottom of it, but I just think that it just adds so much more to it. And so this is our completed towel. I just love that. Thank you for joining me for Yarn Joy Adventures. I have enjoyed this episode with you as we've made this kitchen towel and continue to make things for our kitchen. I look forward to joining you on the next Yarn Joy Adventures as we continue making things for the kitchen. And until then, be joyful, stay crafty in your own way, make your own joyful creations, and I'll see you on the next adventure.